Hi everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Product Coalition European Tour podcast. Today I'm really excited to be joined by Alexandra Ciobotaru in Copenhagen. Welcome, Alexandra.
Hello.
Great to have you join me. Apologies this isn't face-to-face as we originally planned, but I'm sure it's going to be a great recording session no matter what.
I'm very, very excited to meet you, Jay, and I look forward to our discussion.
Brilliant, thank you. Now, first of all, before we get stuck into the podcast episode, I do need to give a thanks. You see, this episode and the whole European tour was all dedicated to raising awareness and support by the bushfire-affected communities and wildlife in Australia. Now, I can certainly say that those communities are feeling even more pain due to the lack of tourism by the coronavirus that's hit the world. Now, so if you do enjoy this episode, please show your support for some amazing causes, which is the Volunteer Firefighters National Bushfire Fund and the Wildlife of Australia over at bushfire.productcoalition.com. If you want to know more about the original tour plans, you can head over to tour.productcoalition.com. The original plan was to visit 5 cities across Europe and interview over 50 leaders. Unfortunately, due to the change of circumstances, I'll now be conducting hopefully 50 more podcasts for you all, but they'll be remotely for now on. So if you've just discovered the Product Coalition, welcome. We're a global product community with over 500,000 readers, 6,000 Slack members and thousands of podcast listeners. You can head to platform.productcoalition.com to find out more. Now, there's a couple of significant donors to the Bushfire fundraiser that I'd like to give some thanks to. First up is UserPilot. UserPilot is a code-free user onboarding and adoption tool designed especially for product management teams. UserPilot helps to increase conversion, user retention rates and reduce churn by guiding new users to the first aha moment with interactive walkthroughs, contextual product tours and onboarding checklists. It allows product managers to build fully customizable, behavior-triggered in-app experiences with a simple visual editor. Go to userpilot.com to book your demo and get a free trial. Shobit Chug is the intentional product manager. Shobit's a Google product manager and he helps product managers become product leaders and have careers they can be proud of. Head to www.intentionalproductmanager.com and sign up for Shobit's free class on the habits that turn product managers into exceptional product leaders and help them move through their careers fast. Product-led teams like Mixpanel and Flexport know that the best time to capture engagement is when a user is already inside the product. That's why they use Chameleon to drive feature adoption, build onboarding flows, and gather user feedback. You can give it a go at trychameleon.com/success. I'd also like to thank 2 individuals, Rich Mironoff and Chris Miles, for their donations. So Alex, this episode, back to basics, how product roles shape a startup. I'm looking forward to chatting through with you.
Likewise.
Before we get started, Alex, on the topic, do you mind talking us through your career background, your path to product?
Yes. Well, I'm first of all very excited to talk to you, Jay. I've been listening to your podcast for a few months now, and I must say that they have been quite important in my career because I decided to move into product just a few months ago. And I took it very seriously. So I researched and read a lot about different product strategies and frameworks and so on. And I discovered your podcast very, very soon after. And I find it a good source of inspiration. So thank you for doing this. And obviously you have some great guests that we can all learn from. And I do want to make one comment there that compared to your very experienced guest, I have less experience in product, but I'm very ambitious to learn. So I'm super excited to talk to you about how we use the product role here in the startup community in Copenhagen. I started my career in sales, business development more specifically. I'm originally from Romania, but I moved to Denmark almost 5 years ago to study at the business school here in Copenhagen. And after I graduated, I moved into a team lead role within business development. So for around 3 years, I worked with prospecting and discussing with potential clients about the reasons for why they should buy the software we were selling. I've worked mostly in tech, and now I work for a startup called Novo Resume, a web application for the career service industry. So what we do is that we build the CVs and cover letters online, and you as a user can download it. We have a free and a premium version. And right now we have 3.5 million users. And as I've joined recently, I think and I hope that I managed to shape a bit the structure of the organization to be able to support the future growth of the company. Right now, we're only 8 people full time, and we work cross-departmental, and we do our best to service our users. And I think that's one of the key parts of my role. I need to make sure that all teams communicate and are able to organize their work to service those users.
Fantastic.
That was a long answer, but
Fantastic. Well, it's a great entry into product, and certainly, coming from business development into product is not a common path. So I congratulate you for coming in through that approach. Can I ask what were some of the opening difficulties of making that transition into product for you?
Well, I must mention that while I was working in business development, we had this idea of organizing sprints for cross-departmental projects. So not just development, but different units of the business. And that was a very interesting experience because we soon figured that we actually need somebody to know the Scrum framework, for example, or look more into the agile methodology to be able to support teams working in different business units to work together in the end. And for that, I've actually done a Scrum Master certification last year. And that's how I managed to understand more the product sphere and how actually the role supports tech development. And I think that was one of the reasons why when I was offered this opportunity, when I was brought in the company, I thought it would be the next step for me. I found it very, very interesting being able to communicate with all the stakeholders that are actually developing the product within the company and trying to prioritize projects and tasks based on user feedback, not based on something that we think might be successful in 2 years, but something that people want now. And if you offer it to them in 6 months, they would be very happy to pay for it. I think that was one of the key challenges and also understandings that made me move.
Fantastic. That's great. And could you tell me a bit about what is the day to day? I think you said 8 people in the startup. What does day to day for you in that size of business look like?
Originally, I was brought in to help the development team. We have 3 developers and 1 remote developer in Spain, and we have many innovation projects or ideas we think we can do. The business was built in 4 years, and most of the knowledge is gathered into our CEO's bright mind because he built the entire infrastructure. And now he's also the main developer, still helping the upcoming team to take over some of the core business. And I was brought in to help them organize the backlog. We have 1 main revenue stream, but we have 3 potential new revenue streams. And knowing that there is potential, knowing that people would buy, knowing that career services is an industry that keeps evolving and digitalization plays a big role in it, how can we put all those ideas together? How can we use the knowledge we get? How can we use the knowledge we discover every day to work and put our efforts in the right direction? And that was basically why I was brought in and what I started with. I organized the team to use, for example, Jira, which was something that I found quite easy to use for small teams. If you use the next-gen version, there's a classic and a next-gen version. And I think for startups, the more minimalistic version is better. That's just my opinion. It also doesn't add too much complexity and really helps teams organize their work. And after that, we had to prioritize the backlog. There were so many issues that I don't really remember how many post-its we put together. It took us probably 2 weeks to finalize that. And after we started looking at tasks and subtasks, we realized that we actually have a pretty nice idea of what needs to be prioritized. So we started by doing that. And soon after a few weeks, I started working with my colleagues in marketing and design to support this development, because whatever we want to do, we need to have the rest of the business units working together. And that's also where I became involved managing and organizing that. What we mostly do is that we experiment any new business idea. We don't look at it just from the development perspective, which is of course very, very important, but we also look at resources because we're few. So we don't really have the capability of a large company or a scale up to get 2 developers per month and try this idea out. So actually what we do is that we use an experimentation framework. We create a structure and we have very few steps. We start by writing functionalities. We develop a mockup. It usually takes a day. We put that mockup online and we ask for user feedback, real user feedback. And then after we have the real user feedback and their opinions, we move on to have an MVP that we test then with very few users online to find any bugs. And after that process is done, we move on to production. And we realize we plan also timeline-wise, when can we put this in our roadmap? Where should it start? Where should it end? What do we think about it? It's teamwork. We all discuss it, and I might bring the structure, but everybody knows that they have a piece. They are a piece of the puzzle. So we're very transparent about it.
You mentioned bringing a prototype to customers in a day from sort of hypothesis development. Could you talk a little bit about the tools and technologies you use to get that done that rapidly?
Yeah, actually, we used, you mentioned user pilot, I think. We're using user testing. And I think they're in the same branch, if I'm not mistaken. We put our mockups online. I think we use Adobe XD for that, and we put them online, and we follow users' journey by recording their screen. That's part of the program that we're using, and most of the questions are reply out loud. So tell us what you see. Tell us what do you think this button should do. Tell us if you feel it's not the right color. Tell us anything. And I must say I was very pleasantly surprised. We did a test in January for a new business idea, and we targeted US, UK, and India, as those are some of our core user base. And we got so much feedback from only interviewing a couple of users, because obviously the process itself takes at least half an hour to go through the journey and listen to the feedback. So we couldn't do too many interviews, but we did a couple, and we had so much feedback and very relevant. Even the fact that the text itself is written maybe too formal might make somebody take them away from trying out your product. And that was great feedback, because we talk with a certain audience and we need to understand that what we're doing serves them and not somebody else. And I think that if our main target tells us this is too formal, I understand, but why do you need to say it like this? I think that's great feedback.
And when you're completing those interview sessions, how are you capturing and synthesizing the feedback to make sense of it and grab meaningful decisions out of that?
Yeah, I use a very easy framework myself, either in Excel or I use some other note tools. And we look for, business viability, first of all. Did the person understand why this would be a product? Would they pay for it? And would they feel that this is something that the market doesn't serve yet? And we try to ask some questions in the beginning, like, for example, for any new product, you could ask something like, have you seen something similar before? It's a very easy question, but some people might say no, and some people might say no, but there is this service that I use that does almost the same thing. So if I wouldn't know about you, I would just go the other way, just because it would serve me the same purpose. So that gives us the understanding that maybe we didn't define the purpose right, for example. So we dig quite deep into some of those questions, and if we have unclarities ourselves, we do it again. We go back and we ask a new question or a new set of questions focused on that part of the flow that we didn't really understand, and we get even more feedback. And we of course look at who answers, what are the percentages of users that understood versus that didn't. People tell us when they when they discuss with us. Of course, it's everything anonymous, but they could tell us, for example, that they're PhD students, and this for them makes a lot of sense because I don't have time to go into business courses. That's great. We didn't think about PhD students as our main audience, but yet there is somebody here who might find this very, very, very useful. So we could think about the strategy to serve that base of users.
Brilliant. Can I ask, how do you source who to interview? Are these all existing customers or prospective new customers? And how do you go out and grab them and get them engaged to want to do this type of session?
We do not do any sort of testing with current customers because everything is anonymous. But we do source our audience based on different criteria. One of them is our main revenue base. For example, most of our paying customers come from United States and native English-speaking countries such as Australia, New Zealand, UK, Canada. So we actually developed this year a strategy where we focused on tiers. So we have tier 1, tier 2, tier 3, and we have different criteria for each of them. One of them being native English speakers because our main product and currently only product is in English. We have some of the landing pages translated, but the editor itself, it's in English. So it matters that you feel very comfortable. Obviously, most of the people that are using us, if not all of them, they speak English as a second, third language, but we do feel a difference in the way users interact. They're faster to buy, they're faster to give us feedback, and for that purpose, we put them into this category of, let's say, native English speakers. It can be any other category, but it needs to make sense for our current product, and that's one way to sort it. Then we look at the new upcoming countries. For example, we have Germany as a very big European country where maybe not as surprising, people know English, but they prefer German. And knowing that, how can we serve them better? We made an experiment and we decided that we want to change, to upgrade some of our landing pages in German. And we already see a lot of traction from that because we know it's not that they don't want to use the service. It's just that if you would speak to me in German first, I might try it more than if I see another English, probably American company, because nobody checks where the company comes from. So those small pieces of knowledge that you gather from asking your users, what do you think about this, are very important because we do want to feel close to our loyal users. The same happens for countries such as the Netherlands and so on. We will not translate the website in a month for all countries, but we could easily add some sort of added value to them, knowing that it will make a difference for some of those users.
Brilliant. Thank you for sharing so much. Now you mentioned at the start coming in as a product role and how that shapes a startup. Could you talk to me a little bit more around how your product role, and it sounds like you've got a founder CEO there, how your product has worked in changing the shape of the organization?
Yeah. I think one important point to make here is that we're all very young in the company. And I mean, obviously I'm biased, but we're all talented and we look forward to do a great job. But it does matter if you've worked before in a company that had a more structured approach to business. And I think the reason why I feel, and I think my colleagues would agree, that we see a difference in structure ever since I joined as a product owner, is because I've worked almost 5 years in structuring sales, which is hard because obviously you need to make sure that there's a certain quota that's reached, that you bring the right people with the right skills, especially soft skills and so on at the table. And knowing that you have to make frameworks for everything. At least this is how I worked before. So the first thing I did was that I made a framework. Should we meet every month and just discuss the numbers of the company? Why not be very transparent about it and say, hey guys, we almost reached 3 million people. That is amazing. 3 million people have been on our website. For a small company in Copenhagen, that's really incredible because we have no investment. Everything is bootstrapped. So all of those small wins or big wins, depending on how you see them, they should be celebrated and discussed. So I think the first thing I would emphasize is structure. And this is something that I was really keeping an eye on. So let's have a framework for how we give feedback. Let's have a framework for how we do experiments. Let's have a framework for how we organize our meetings. We don't want to have too many meetings, but we should have one monthly meeting, for example, discussing all of this updates. I've also made a yearly goal for 2020 that's quite ambitious compared to what happened before, and that is because we realized that the more you bring people on board and the more you train them, and this is something that the company really invests in, training their employees, the more you should see some sort of impact on the way efficiency increases. You become better at understanding if this actually is worth your 5 hours a day, or can you give it 2 hours and then get some sort of feedback and move on with another project. In the beginning, you might want to do it all, but I think we've learned that we want to do all, but we shouldn't do all, because we do not have time and resource to invest in all the great ideas. But we should, of course, sort 2 or 3 that have also business viability and in time can provide more value.
It sounds like you're making a lot of small bets very rapidly, empowering you to innovate at speed without overcommitting on any given proposition. Could you tell me a little bit about how, for success of any proposition or feature or new product, it's going to come back to the metrics and how they're performing? It sounds like you're quite tight around sharing metrics and performance of the products. Could you talk to me a little bit about what that looks like?
Yeah. Well, when we do any sort of experiment or when we plan anything, I make an analysis. So I open an Excel spreadsheet and I put some numbers on. And those numbers are, averages of what happened in the previous years. I look at the growth rates and I look at what the industry says about what's going to happen in the next years. For example, career service industry is becoming more and more digitalized, as I've mentioned before. So the impact on, for example, moving on to having a video CV, it's something that everybody talks about. The reality of how fast companies will implement that, for example, it's different. So are we going to focus all of our resources in building a video CV, or should we focus on building a different sort of revenue stream that makes more sense right now? And that is part of analyzing and adding numbers and predictions together. I do the same when we discuss the impact of our small changes. For example, we have OKRs as our framework for reaching our goals. So we have a yearly business goal for the company, but we have quarterly OKRs. Every 3 months, we have new OKRs, objectives and key results. It's a framework made famous by Google, but it exists since the 70s, if I'm not mistaken, or 80s. Correct. And it focuses around the delivery of measurable key results while keeping in mind the big objective for the year or for the quarter. We try to cascade our objective and key results from our business goals, but they don't need to be the same. It doesn't need to be the same objective copy-pasted into a quarter, but it should, of course, help and support the company goals for the year. And so far, we have divided our work into squads or teams, and each of the squads and teams or teams have the name that is connected either with the project or with the business unit. So for example, we have a marketing squad, and then we have a squad related to one of the development projects. And in those teams, you have the people, of course, that are part of it. I'm mostly participating and joining all of them as a support, basically, for management and for looking over the backlog and the business part. And what we do is that we meet every month and we discuss those OKRs in our monthly meeting as well. So in December, we said that January will look like this. Right now, it looks like this. What do you guys think? It's a very transparent and open discussion, and everybody shares their challenges or their prediction. Also because each of the members of those squads, they are focused on their part. So they do know what should happen, or they think they know what should happen. So we are just very open in discussing it together. And now, for example, we're approaching the end of the quarter. So we will have another meeting to prepare for the next quarter, and also to assess if what we planned, first of all, was achieved. And if it was not achieved, why wasn't it? Was it too, I don't know, did we not look at the business enough? Did we think that one idea was just our first love and we couldn't give it up, so we just went with it even though nobody was really sure about it, and so on. So we always have to have this feedback session where we are discussing why did we put this here in the beginning and why do we think it didn't work.
Brilliant, thank you. It's great to hear some of the tactics and strategies that you're using to increase the team performance there as well. It's with 3.5 million users worldwide, it sounds like you're going from startup to scale up now. Could you talk to me a little bit around what's shifting for you between the startup mindset and a growth mindset now?
Yeah, well, first of all, one of the challenges I think most startups have is when it takes off, what do you first do? Do you make sure that your core business stands and continues to grow, or do you innovate in the same time? And I actually think there's some place in between where there is a perfect balance. I'm not sure how you reach it fast or very efficiently, but it must exist. So what I try to do as a product person in a small startup is to balance those two approaches. We need to make sure that our core business continues to grow and continues to give value, which is why we also invest in adding features, in working with innovation within the core business, while doing the other innovation on product. For example, we have a decent platform that we've created that we hopefully want to launch soon. We're in testing mode now, and we want to make sure that when that goes live, it will serve the right people with the right features. So we just need to fix maybe some bugs or maybe add some small features that would make it close to perfect, at least for the stage that we're at. And to do that, we just need to balance our work very well. We discuss it openly, as I've mentioned before, but we also work with dividing our time into percentages. And it might seem a bit odd, but what we do is that I go to the development team and I say, can you give me 20% of your time for this project per week? Yes or no? If you say no, okay, I need to rethink this. Can you give me 10%? What can I do with 10% in order to be able to innovate on other lines of business as well? And if I get a yes, I start planning, as I've mentioned, the experimentation framework, functionalities, and so on. And then I go into the final stage where I actually need a developer and try to test that idea and see real feedback. And if that goes well, we will then prioritize, okay, can we get 30% now for this to move it into production? If I get a yes, then that's great. If I get a no, then I need to discuss again with the management, okay, what is the best approach? And sometimes we don't know, so we take a week break and we say, let's get back to this in a week, because there's so much we can know and say now, we just need to think about it. And I think so far that worked out well.
Brilliant. Thank you. Alexandra, I know you're a big participant in the community as well. Could you talk to me a little bit about what you're doing in that space with regards to, I know, women in product, women in tech, etc., and what's going on in the community space in Copenhagen?
Yeah. So the tech community in Copenhagen has a great ecosystem. We have some big tech events like Tech Barbecue Tech Festival in the autumn, and I'm always joining either as a moderator of panels or contributor, because I think that representativeness is a very important part of working in product and tech. And that's one of the reasons why I do it. And the other reason, of course, is because you always get inspired by the amount of knowledge you can gather in one place. And that is honestly a great feeling to know that we have the space and the communities to support each other. We actually, we will participate. It was not my idea, but it was a great invitation from another product manager, Deepa, from Copenhagen to launch Women in Product. So she came up with this idea, and it was supposed to happen now in March. Unfortunately, I think it will be postponed, but the online community is active now, and there are more than 50 females interested in joining the first kickoff meeting. And we're building a community around this because we should see representativeness and equal chances in all industries. And I think this is just one way to bring people together and discuss what can we do, how can we improve our ecosystem, how can we improve our field, and so on.
Brilliant. Well, I certainly congratulate you for being so involved, and from one person leading the community to another, it's great to hear development in that space. So that's brilliant. Thank you.
Many thanks to you too.
It's been great to record with yourself, Alexandra. Thanks so much. It's definitely refreshing to go back to the topic title of Back to Basics, and I think sometimes in particularly bigger, more corporate enterprise businesses, we can forget about some of the healthy and hygienic basics that you've talked to us about today, that, to be honest, are some of the fundamentals of software product management. So thank you so much.
Thank you very much as well. It was a pleasure. And I hope that some other people will be inspired to join startups, because it's hard, but it's also fun. And everybody working in that sphere is probably very, very excited to build products that people love.
Indeed. And you sold it very well today. You made it sound so easy. Brilliant. Thank you to the audience for listening in on the podcast or watching on YouTube. I hope you really enjoyed this podcast episode with Alexandra and I. If you have, please remember that all of this time is dedicated to raising awareness and funds for the bushfire affected communities of Australia. If you do want to help out the cause, you can do so over at bushfire.productcoalition.com. Until the next remote podcast episode, thank you and goodbye.